Hey everyone, this is Erica from Confessions of a Homeschooler. For today's Tip Tuesday, I wanted to address a really popular topic that I get asked about all the time, and that is how to homeschool with babies and toddlers running around. Now, if you have more than one child, you know that this is probably going to be happening in your household if it hasn't already, where you are trying to teach one of your older kids, but you've got your younger child who is vying for your attention and crying or hanging on your leg or getting into things they maybe aren't supposed to because you're preoccupied with your other child. And so I just wanted to give you some tips and tricks I have. We started homeschooling my oldest when she was actually three and a half. I was really eager, and so we started preschool early, and then I had my son at the time, and then we added in my third daughter and my fourth one after that. And so we have been through the gamut of homeschooling ages and ranges and brand new babies and toddlers, and they were born in the middle of the year, at the beginning of the year, so they were all in different stages, and I had to kind of adjust things based on how old they were when we were trying to do our school time. So I want to just share with you some of my tips and tricks. Hopefully it'll help some of you out. So my first one is to, be realistic. If you have a new baby or you know that you're going to be having a baby and you are starting school, one of my first tips is to take it easy on yourself and maybe schedule in a break during school when you know you're going to be having your baby. I wouldn't suggest thinking, oh, we're going to have a baby in August and we're starting school in August, let's go. I would probably take maybe a month or so off and start school maybe in September so that you can just get into a schedule, get your, used to having a new baby. It's really tiring because you're up a lot at night. And so to think that realistically you could be sort of alert enough to homeschool one of your other children while you've been up all night, you've got a brand new baby, and you may have had a cesarean or a difficult labor or birth, just might not be very realistic. So my first tip, and I always did this with my babies as I was having them, was I just planned a few weeks to a month off around the birth of my baby, knowing that I wanted to spend that time with my new baby and having fun and enjoying my toddler or my other children, and not be so stressed out about, oh, we've got to start school right away and get all this done. And all that's really doing is adding stress upon an already kind of life-changing situation. And so I think just to give yourself a break and just take a little bit of a break around your baby and just get used to everything, let the kids get used to the new baby before you try and jump into homeschooling. Now, if you're having a baby somewhere in the middle, like we had one, kind of around Christmas time, then we did start school in August. I did a few months of school, took up until, about a week before the birth, or I might have even homeschooled right up until we ended up having her, and then took time off in the middle of the year, and then we picked it up, like after that, like a month later or something. So you can really be flexible. That's one of the great things about homeschooling. You can really be flexible with your schedule and kind of take time off as needed for births and that sicknesses and that kind of thing. So take a break with the new babies. That's my first tip. My next tip is for new babies is to keep them close. We had set up wherever we were doing school, I would set up their pack and play or, a swing or a bouncy seat or anything like that, where they were kind of feeling like they were involved in what was going on, but they were close by, easy for me to get to. I wasn't having to run all the way upstairs to get diapers or, and leaving the school situation and that kind of thing. And my one daughter, who was born like smack dab in the middle of the school year, I actually wore her on one of those sling thingies. I forget what they're called now because it's been a while. But the little bundle boo thingies, and I held her for a lot of the time while I was doing school, and she was brand new, she wanted to be close to me, that comforted her, and she was perfectly happy in there. And she's 7 now, and I don't think it ruined her at all for me to be holding her that much. I know there's a lot of varying theories on things like that, but you kind of do what you have to do when you've got a brand new baby and you're trying to homeschool or take care of other kids and run a household and cook and clean and all those kinds of things. So I just kept her on me the majority of the time. If she was napping well or whatever, I could put her in her, bouncy seat or her pack and play or whatever it was that I was putting her to sleep in at that time. And she could still, though, be near us. She was easy to get to if she was crying. She was easy to comfort. I could nurse her in that while we were doing school. So just keeping my baby really close to me while we were doing school made everything so much easier. Even for the other kids, there were times when I would have one of my kids kind of just occupy her and talk to her and play with her for a little bit while I was helping another one, and we kind of would tag team and rotate out like that with her. And you know, it just worked out to kind of fit her into the group with us. I didn't want her feeling like she was in another room trying to take a nap or whatever, and we were all doing things and she wasn't included. So I just kept her close. It made it easy on her, it made it easy on me, and I think she's a well-adjusted 7-year-old, so I don't think we did any harm by doing that. So keeping her close. The third thing that I like to mention is nap times. Use your nap times wisely, especially when they get a little bit older and they're toddlers and they're really busy. There was one year there, while my fourth one is quite a busy, was a very busy toddler. She was notorious for getting into things while we were doing school. As a matter of fact, one year, our very first day of school, I thought things were going well. She was about, I want to say she was 1.5 maybe. And she went upstairs and I thought she was playing in her room. I had checked on her. I ran downstairs to get the other kids started. When we came back upstairs, she had gotten into fingernail polish and proceeded to paint her carpet in her bedroom pink with fingernail polish. And so it was at that time that I realized my next tip that I'm going to share with you, and what I've already kind of said, is to keep them close by because they definitely can get into things. So she was very, very busy, and that year we had to use her nap time like, you know, purposefully. So as soon as we put her in her crib for nap time and she was kind of down for the count, we all ran downstairs and we did whatever schooling we could get done where I was having to focus more. Things that took more energy and focus that she couldn't be involved in as easily or she was distracting us from. So things like math lessons where I really need to sit down and kind of explain something to someone without, you know, having her climbing or breaking things or getting into things and that kind of thing. So we used our nap time purposefully and we did school. We took a break in the morning, we had playtime, we did things with her, we did reading time, calendar time, things that she could be kind of involved in and being loud and not really distracting people. And then we took those serious things that where they really needed to focus and do their work. We did those specifically during her nap time. And then when she woke up, we'd kind of take another break and then we would do more stuff during her nap time. So just adjusting your schedule to whatever fits the age of your baby or your toddler really can help out. And that's one other beautiful thing about homeschooling is it's so flexible. You can kind of do that. So you might be doing school during nap time. You might be doing field trip stuff and fun stuff in the mornings, or, you know, and then doing school in the afternoons when your baby or toddler is sleeping. So you just kind of have to alternate your schedule. And remember and think that this is just a short season. They are not going to be that age for very long. And next year, chances are they will be in a whole nother schedule and mindset and skill level than they are right now. So if it's really hard right now and they're getting into everything, you know, like I said, just make your schedule so that it fits their age at this time, and know that next year it's going to be totally different. This is not going to be like a permanent, oh my gosh, I can't homeschool because I've got these little guys. It's a transition, and each year is different. We've been through it all. Every year I have thought, oh my gosh, I can't do this. And then the next year it's like completely different. So just keep that in mind. Try and keep the bigger picture in mind and know that they're not going to be babies forever. They're not going to be toddlers forever. They grow out of some of that stuff. So try and enjoy that time while it's there, because then they're going to get bigger and next year your schedule will be completely different. So adjusting your schedule and using your nap time wisely is another tip I have. Now, one of the other things that I like to do is to just include them, especially when they are toddlers. So like I said, I kept my baby on me, you know, when we were doing school when she was really tiny. When she was a toddler and wanting to walk around and experiment and all those kinds of things, we actually started including her. And if you look back on my blog, you'll see that at 1.5, she used to sit in our work boxes. For those of you who don't know what my work boxes are, we keep our kids' schoolwork in them, and they used to be the Joann's rolling carts you just pull out, or craft cards, they sell them other places, but you pull out the drawer, my kids would do their work and set their drawers on the floor, and inevitably my baby would be climbing in the drawers and climbing up the cards and all those kinds of things. And so from a very early age, I just added her to the homeschool. I set up her own desk. She had her own drawers, and they had special games in them that were only to be used during school time, and I traded them out. If you need ideas on what you can put in those, I have a ton of them on my blog. Just search for like preschool work boxes, and you'll find a ton of baby and toddler friendly games and that kind of thing that you can put in those drawers. But those were things that she was only allowed to use while we did school. And when we did it, we were in our dining or our office kind of space in our house. And so I was able to actually close the doors. So she kind of was confined to our schoolroom. She had free run of the room, but she also had her own special things that she knew, drawers she could get into. And honestly, when they're that age, they just like to kind of play with stuff and get into stuff like that, and she loved it. She had crayons, she had the dry erase markers and dry erase boards that she could use, and of course I had to keep an eye on her so she wasn't eating them, but things like that where she felt like she was being one of the big kids and she was involved in their stuff, but she kind of had her own special things, and so she wasn't doing a formal school or anything like that. I just found fun things that were baby or toddler safe, and I just put different ones in each one of her little drawers. She could pull the drawers out, dump them on the floor, play with blocks. We had jumbo like soft dice she played with, sorting activities, those little thing with the post, and then they can put the blocks on them and take them off again, and all those kind of things. I would just fill her drawers with all kinds of different manipulative type things like that were safe for her, and she could just have at it during school time, and that really helped to keep her busy. And honestly, I think at that stage they mostly want your attention. That's kind of what they're after. So if you're trying to teach a student and they're pulling on your leg and crying and that kind of thing, really all they want is your attention. And so if you can kind of divert some of that into different activities that they can do but feel like they're still included in your homeschool, that's probably one of my #1 tips, because that's what they want. They want to be included. They want to do the stuff the big kids are doing. They don't want to be shoved over on the side, maybe, in a playpen or whatever, where they aren't really feeling like they can be involved. They just want to be involved and they want your time. And so I have, like I said, a ton of ideas, and I'll try and link some of that below for you so you can kind of see. It's also in my Homeschooling 101 book. I haven't mentioned that yet, but I have this Homeschooling 101 book that I wrote a few years ago, and this has an entire section devoted to toddlers and babies, and just some ideas and things that you can do to include them, games they can play, things that are safe that will keep them busy but keep them feeling involved. And I even at one point took my letter of the week activities and that my daughter, my preschooler, was doing at the time, and as soon as she was done with them, she would give them to our toddler, and she could just play with the little pieces, and of course sometimes she ate them, so you got to keep an eye on them, but she just liked the fact that she thought she was doing big kids stuff, and so that really helped. The other thing that I would say, giving her own workspace and her own drawers, and then special things that were just for that time was a huge saver. The other thing I'd like to say is to just spend time with your toddlers outside of your school time. So if you're putting in a lot of time with them, before school maybe, or after school, and they're getting that every day, they're not going to be so whiny and needy when you're trying to do a school situation. Now, I know that can kind of some days are better than others, and I say that, but it's not always, real life. Some days they're just kind of hanging on you, and that's just where they want to be no matter what you do, and it happens. You have a couple of choices at homeschooler. You can just say, you know what, we're going to take a break from school while I kind of just comfort my baby or my toddler and just give them some attention, and then take that little bit of a break, and then we'll reconvene once they're kind of calmed down. A lot of times that's all it takes. Sometimes they're sick and you don't know it, and they're just having a bad day, and you just have to maybe scrap school. Other things that you can do are just hold them. I did that a lot. If she was really just fussy and she didn't want to play her games, she didn't want to, be involved or whatever, she just wanted my attention, I would just hold her while I was teaching a lesson, and just me holding her and carrying her around and give her, something to hang on to and maybe chew on, teething rings, things like that, was just enough for her. And it was easy for me because, once you're holding them and kind of giving them attention, suddenly they usually aren't as much of a distraction or whatever, and so you can teach a lesson or help somebody else out with a problem or whatever, and while you're just kind of hanging on to them. And so but if you are putting in time, like say before you start school, just spend 20 minutes reading them a book or playing with them or just talking to them or feeding them a snack or whatever it is, and then a lot of times that's enough of an input, and that'll go a long way for you. Then if it's already been a busy morning, they haven't gotten a whole lot of attention, and then you try and move into school and they're like, hey, what about me? So just putting in a little bit of time like that before you start can often go a long way into them being able to maybe play more independently while you're trying to teach your other kids. The other thing, and I use this as sparingly. I don't want them on electronics all the time, but one thing that has helped out in a pinch is electronics. Now, I have a ton of posts on my blog for iPad, like educational and fun iPad games and apps for like really little kids. And I usually try and pick something a little bit more educational just because it makes me feel better handing them an iPad. But there are lots of things like the puzzles where they have got a puzzle and it's got the kind of shapes in there and they have to drag the pieces over, or things where they're matching colors, or counting, or things like that. There are so many apps out there these days that are educational and geared towards really younger kids. And one thing that maybe will make you feel better about doing that is that A, it's not for a very long period of time. It might just be so that you can get through a lesson with one of your other kids. And B, it's actually really good for their brains if you're doing like an educational one. And even if you're not doing an educational one, it's great for their fine motor skills, which is going to aid them a little bit later on when they get into preschool and kindergarten to be able to hand-eye coordination, to move something on a screen and place it where they want it to go, or turn it their direction they need it to be, or whatever. So you're actually, in a way, kind of helping them to learn, and you're giving them something constructive to do at the same time. So we have used our iPad with our little guys on more than one occasion to kind of occupy them so that we could get through school on a certain day. Now, I don't just sit them down with the iPad for 6 hours or 4 hours or however long we're doing school and be like, here, this is you go do that and we're gonna do this. I would never do, really recommend you do that. That's too much screen time in my opinion. Everybody has their own thoughts on that. But we really just use the iPad in short bursts and kind of when needed. So it's just another kind of final option that you can have as far as, if you've tried everything else and that's like, that'll work. So those are my tips on how to kind of homeschool with babies and toddlers in tow. Of course, it's going to be different for every family, and, the ages of your kids and how many other kids you have that you're trying to homeschool and all those things. But hopefully at least those tips kind of gave you a starting point, some helpful ways to manage your time and to get them involved and to have them doing something instructive while you're also trying to do school with the older kids. So if you have any ideas to share, make sure to leave a comment below so that others can learn from your experience as well. And I hope you enjoyed this Tip Tuesday, and I will see you next time.